What a brilliant move you made to join us in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics, coming to you from our studio at First Star Logistics. And the reason it's brilliant, it's draft week. And during draft week, we have an opportunity to catch up with Director of College Scouting, Mike Potts, who does an unbelievable job for the Cincinnati Bengals. It is a machine, the way they've got it structured down there. Everybody involved with him getting the draft together have been together for quite a few years. I mean, they can complete each other's sentences. It is a finely tuned machine. They get a lot done in a very little time. So I know they're going to be extremely prepared for this year's draft. And we're going to talk about that preparation process in this year's draft with Director of College Scouting, Mike Potts. Thanks for joining us in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. As always, we're emanating from our outstanding studios that they so generously let us use. Today, boy, you made a great decision, because here comes the draft. It's an annual thing. And this guy works year-round for this particular week, particularly the 3 days of the draft. Is the Director of College Scouting, other than Mike Potts. And I know you're a busy man. For you to carve time for us is greatly appreciated, sir.
What's up, Lap? Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Always good talking with you. Yeah, we just finished up our last round of the positional draft meetings this morning, finished up with the special teams. So we'll continue meeting over the next 5 or 6 days up until draft day, and put the finishing touches on everything.
So how many times in the next week leading up to the draft, the week that's left, how many times is the board tweaked? And I mean tweaked, it's not overhauled, obviously. You've got a pretty good handle, but does it tweak right up until, when you're making your pick?
Not all the way up until making the pick. It'll be pretty much finalized at some point Thursday morning before the draft ever starts, before the first round starts. But I think there's two things. We have to rank the guys. In this case, we'll rank them 1 through 18, 1 through 49, all the way down to our third and fourth round picks, regardless of position. We'll mesh those together. And then the other part of it is we've got a lot of guys either at the same position or at different positions that we have the same grade on. So, say we have a middle of the third round grade on 4 different receivers, just for an example, we'll make sure we rank those 4 in the exact order that we like them, even though we have the same talent grade on them. There's different things from medical and character that weigh into it, and then also the scheme fit. So we'll discuss that with ownership, our personnel staff, and all the coaches, and kind of come up with a final order in that way.
It's crazy. All the really good players that I played with, they obviously had physical traits. I mean, in those can be identified, but the one thing that they all had to a T, every single one of them, unbelievable competitive fire. Never wanted to lose a rep. Never mind game. They didn't want to lose a practice rep. I mean, these guys, from that intangible standpoint. And how do you determine that? How do you find that out about a guy? An interview process, talking to coaches, talking to equipment guys, trainers. I mean, is that the whole process to find out the intangibles about a guy?
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything that you mentioned. It's through the interview process. It's through talking to their staff members, their coaches at their colleges, even going back to high school. And there's a ton of guys nowadays, as you know, with the transfer portal and transferring. You've got guys going to 2, 3, 4 different schools. So sometimes you have to go back to earlier in their career and dig a little bit deeper on their makeup. Maybe talk to some coaches where they were their freshman or sophomore year. So it's an ongoing process. You're talking to as many people as you can, and then you want to look the player in the eye, obviously, as well, whether that's an interview at the All-Star game, an interview at the combine, or we bring these guys in for 30 visits and get to spend a full day with them, go out to dinner with them, watch film with them, just get to know them as a person. But all that being said, I think what really matters is the competitiveness, like you said, but the most important thing, in my opinion, is you want to see that translate to the tape. You don't want to just hear their coaches and their staff members rave about how tough they are, how competitive they are, but then you don't see that type of play demeanor or urgency level or physicality when you flip their tape on. So when those things all align and match up after you've done the tape evaluation, that's when you feel really good about a player's makeup.
The continuity and consistency of the people that you've been working with. You guys have been together as a group for a while now, and it's an outstanding group. I mean, you guys are really talented at what you do. And like you said, transfer portal and all that, the fact that you've been around so long, you probably have contacts everywhere at every school. So it's not like, oh, geez, I don't really have anybody over there where he was before he came here and here. You guys probably have it covered like a blanket, and have relationships that have been kind of long lasting now with everybody.
Yeah, for sure. It's we like you said, we've got a great staff that have contacts all over the country, and like I mentioned, maybe there was a guy from the West Coast that Steve Radicevic scouted and has contacts out there, at a school in California, and then he finished his career somewhere on the East Coast. So you have to piece that puzzle together to a certain degree, and it is great having the talented guys that we have on our staff that have built up a ton of connections over the years. So I'm proud of the way our staff operates in that way, and I think we've done a really good job. And like you said, it's ongoing all the way up until draft day. We've got 5 or 6 more days here to continue to collect every piece of information that we can, and like I said, we'll put the final board together.
This year's draft class has the fewest players declaring early of the last 10 years. Is that NIL driven? And with the NIL, is it made it easier or more difficult, evaluating talent?
I think you could probably make an argument both ways. I do think there's more guys staying in school because they can put together an attractive NIL package for somebody that maybe say would be a day 3 pick and is extremely valuable to that college. They can put a good amount of money together to where, depending on the background or the financial situation that player comes from, they may not be as desperate or as eager to leave school a year earlier than they would now these days. But it does have its advantages, I would say, because before NIL, we didn't necessarily have a great gauge on all players in terms of how they would manage their money and how they would be with money in their pocket. Now a lot, some of these college players are making $1 million+ a year playing college football. So it takes a little bit of that element of projection out of it with their maturity and their life skills and ways to handle it. But at the same time, you can look at it from the opposite end. So I think it really depends on the player and each individual player's character and level of maturity and all of that stuff. And again, that's what makes our job hard, is just piecing that whole puzzle together from every angle.
That's interesting, though. Another layer of the onion you can peel. How's the guy handle the money? And that's a very interesting way to look at it. The closer you get to the draft, every year it's the same. The rumors swirl about players, good and bad, and whatever. Has it gotten easier or more difficult to determine fact from fiction?
Oh man, it's always difficult to determine. I think it goes back to what you said about our contacts that we have, working in scouting the years that our staff has, and then relying on our coaches in that area as well, with coaches that they may know around college football, guys maybe that they've worked with in the past. But I think the more people you can talk to, the better, and if you talk to, say, 20 people on a guy, and the overwhelming majority of those 20 people are telling you similar things, then you can feel good about it. I think it's when the first handful of people you talk to have vastly different stories and opinions on a player. That's kind of when it's tough to piece it together, and you want to continue to do more and more homework to really develop that conviction. And then, like I said, look the player in the eye and get a good gut feeling that way as well when you meet with them in person. And at the end of the day, you're placing a bet on young men that are in their early 20s, and in most cases, and there's a lot of different ways that people can mature and develop. So you're just taking the information that you have and just try to make the best educated decision, I guess, that you can, and sometimes you just have to go with your gut instinct.
A quarterback position, which you know very well, you played the position very adroitly during your playing career. That can distort a big board quickly. You know, I mean, quarterbacks, that the value is off the charts. I mean, it's a quarterback-driven league. It always has been, always will be. Is there any other position that can get a player overdrafted? I mean, is there any other positional performance importance of performance that might, kind of slant the value of that position group?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the quarterback position for sure would be, in my opinion, far and away the most important, just with the guy that's
Sure.
looked at as the leader of the team and touching the ball every play. Along those same lines, players that are affecting the quarterback are going to be the ones that can be highly valued, and you can, like I mentioned, maybe need plays into it as well.
Yeah.
But like I mentioned, if you've got guys graded at a similar range, you may go with that more valuable position. You look at some of these pass rushers and then pass protectors as well that are either protecting or looking to sack or disrupt the quarterback. You look at what some of those guys have been being paid in free agency, and some of the numbers are astronomical. So I think if you look at those numbers, that would tell you where the league highly values players in terms of positions of importance. But at the same time, you don't want to pass up another player at a position that maybe is lesser valued. You want to take the best player if you can in all rounds and create the most roster depth that you can, because you never know when injuries or unforeseen things can pop up.
Some years don't have 32 players worthy of first round grades. This draft class seems to be, very, very deep and very, very top heavy, with the depth. Are there 32 players worthy of first round grades? Are there guys that'll go early in the second round that have first round grades? How deep is this draft in the first round?
Yeah, I think it's a good draft. I think most drafts there's not 32 guys with true first round grades, because
Right.
when you're giving a guy a real first round grade on, here and the other grading scales that I've been a part of, you're looking for a guy with true, star potential and Pro Bowl potential. Now there's different levels of that, obviously. That's kind of why we have top of the round, middle of the round, bottom of the round grades, 1 A, B, C in that case, first round. But if you're picking at the bottom of the round, or you want to be prepared for a trade back scenario or a trade up scenario from the second round, you better have 32 players that are ranked in the order that you like them. So it'll be different from team to team, but there's definitely a lot of guys up there in the first round that we value very highly after going through our whole scouting process over the past 1 to 2, 3, 4 years in some case, that we've been looking at some of these players that are in this draft. And there's obviously a lot that goes into it, and we'll reach the final ranking on those 1 through 32 and so on here in the early part of next week.
So it looks like this year there might even be candidates to fill out the 1C. I know some years it was like only get halfway through 1B. So that's good news for everybody that are draft fans. Which position groups are the strongest and strongest, and I guess talent, and then maybe have the most depth as well? It's a two-part question, I guess. Some of them are going to be top heavy. There's probably somebody in every position group, obviously, but which ones might be the deepest and strongest?
Yeah, I mean, we like all the positions for different reasons, probably in this draft, and we've got to weigh all the needs. Obviously, a lot's been made of the top end quarterbacks and the top end tackles that are in this draft. Offensive line, really, of all 5 positions along the O line. Receivers, I think, is going to be a good position every year with the way the passing game has expanded in college football, and the amount of playmakers that there are in college football. There just seems to be a lot of supply. There's a lot of demand as well for it in the NFL with guys that can score touchdowns and create explosive plays. So those are some of the ones that come to mind, but that doesn't mean the other positions are weak by any means. Those are just the first few that off the top of my head. But like I said, there's players at every level of the draft that we value at every position on the field. And we'll just work through it, and we'll see how it plays out, and we'll kind of evaluate how we can best fit our needs, and also weigh that with getting the best player available in each round.
Are there more draftable interior defensive linemen this year than in years past? It seems to me like there's more in sheer numbers draftable interior, which is good. It's good for the Cincinnati Bengals. That's an area where you want to address a little bit. Not necessarily top heavy. I mean, there might be one or two first round guys, but you get to the second and third round, there's a good number of guys. Is there a little bit more top to bottom? Seventh round, there's a good number of guys that fit the bill right there as draftable players. Is the number a little bit bigger this year, or am I imagining things?
Yeah, I think there's a lot. I'd have to look at the numbers and how it compares to the previous years, but just being really dialed in on this draft class right now, there's a lot of different guys that have a lot of different maybe strengths and weaknesses and styles to their game, different dimensions and different levels of athleticism and production and strength, physicality, all of those things that we weigh when we're evaluating players. So I think it's going to be a matter of who fits for us. I think there's different styles that could fit in on our roster and really help us. There's a number of disruptive interior pass rush types that can get up the field and make plays with their athleticism and their explosiveness. And then there's a lot of big body guys as well that can plug up the run and also give you some power to collapse the pocket in the pass game, the pass rush element as well. So again, just have to work through it. There's always guys that you like, that you've done a lot of work on, and they go off the board somewhere else, and we'll have to just see how the chips fall and who's available at our pick in each round. But there's definitely a lot of guys that we like in this draft class at that D tackle position.
As you're at the final stages now, where you've gathered so much information, and now you're meeting collectively, and all the information's coming out on the table, and I mean, it's got to be just a myriad of info to sort through, and then setting the board and all that sort of thing. That's a monstrous task. But the fact that you've done it with this group, again, we talk about for so long, the efficiency level has to be extraordinary. I mean, you guys are probably getting more done in less time. I mean, everybody can probably finish each other's sentences, right?
Yeah, we're all around. We all live in Cincinnati. We're when we're not out traveling on the road, we're in the office together, constantly having discussions. So we're always on the same page. We're always meeting, and yeah, we've got our hand in a lot of different areas, whether it's pro scouting, college scouting, some of the contract negotiation stuff, waiver claims, trades, college free agency. Every aspect of roster acquisition. So it's great to have the staff that we have, and yeah, I mean, you're right. We probably could finish each other's sentences at some point. We know what kind of players that we like, and then that also meshes in well with the coaching staff as well, and being in constant communication with our coaching staff and knowing what type of players they like and they think will fit with their scheme, and then weighing that with our evaluations, and it gives us an advantage maybe over some teams that don't have that type of setup, and we can really pick the best player for the Bengals.
How do you evaluate a player who's got all the measurables? Man, this guy is just he's got everything, but he was in an offense that didn't necessarily fit everything that this guy has, or he and the coach had some sort of a falling out, or whatever the case may be, and that affected. Now, with this transfer portal, that's taken care of. They move on, and they're asked to move on or whatever. But sometimes the guy is in a situation kind of beyond his control a little bit. Are those really tough evaluations?
They are tough. I think at the end of the day, you have to trust your sources on the makeup of the player and the character. Like you said, maybe there's one coach that he was butting heads with, but every other coach that's been around him absolutely loved him. And then physically, you have to evaluate the traits. Maybe he's a big, fast, quick, explosive guy with good hands, but they just don't throw the ball a ton, or for whatever reason, they had another guy who was the focal point of their offense. If we're talking about a pass catcher in that example, and it's like you said, it's hard. You have to put all the pieces together and kind of project what the guy would be in your offense. And then, maybe the hardest part is putting an exact value on where you could get that guy in the draft, because maybe he's a first or second round talent, but maybe you can get him a little bit later than that, just based on what the production was or what went on, circumstances that may have been within his control or out of his control in college. So there's a lot of different factors that you have to weigh. And like you said, it's a good thing that we have experienced scouts that are talented, and a lot of people on our staff with contacts that we can rely on around college football and around the rest of the NFL, and the football world in general, to kind of put those pieces together. But it's never a perfect process or perfect way to evaluate guys, and we're constantly trying to get better at it and tweak our process and find the best way to do it to reach the most effective conclusion.
Part of the fact or fiction every year is there's a player that's just climbing the draft board like crazy. I mean, he's shooting up, and this small sample size. I mean, all the national sports coverage of the draft with the quarterbacks. I mean, gosh, obviously aided immeasurably by all four candidates visiting at the exact same time. Up there in wherever the city was. Which city was it that Washington? I guess it was, wasn't it?
Washington, yeah.
They all went to Washington together. It might be as simple as, boy, you got a billionaire owner who wants to see them all in the same day. He doesn't want to take 4 days to visit with players, But I mean, what do you think of that idea, by the way? What do you think about bringing, if you were in the quarterback market and we didn't have number 9, Joe Burrow, as a quarterback, what would you think about bringing all your candidates in like that under one roof?
It's an interesting thing that they did, an interesting way to do it. I've never really heard of that before. I have heard of teams bringing in multiple guys at the same position on the same day. I think from what I heard, they had maybe around 20 or 20 plus guys in on the same day. So not just the quarterbacks. And they, I don't know their exact reasons for it, but there's, it's something to consider in terms of the way that they interact with their peers and players around them. Kind of, because a lot of it's you're projecting, how's this guy going to fit in your locker room? How's he going to be as a teammate? How's he going to interact with his peers? Like I said, so depending on the amount of exposure you've had to those players, maybe some of them you've already done all the work during the fall. You've already interviewed some of them at all-star games. You've already spent time with them at the combine. You've went to their pro day, maybe taken them out to dinner, maybe spent time with them there. Maybe you've even had a private workout with them. So there's opportunities to get one-on-one time with a quarterback or whatever the position may be. So they may have brought quarterbacks in this case, and they already had another 4 or 5 or more even chances to have a one-on-one exposure with the players. So I think maybe, like you said, maybe the owner could be a factor in it. There's a lot of different reasons they could do it. But it's not like when you bring those guys in for a visit, that's your only time to meet with them. There's plenty of other chances to get one-on-one exposure with them. And, they felt that maybe, having a large group and seeing how those guys interact was beneficial. And I think it's an interesting way to do it. And, maybe it's something that other teams will consider in the future.
You hear of players shooting up the draft board regardless of position, or free falling, sinking like a lead balloon for whatever reason, right up early, all through the draft. They either rise or fall at the very end for whatever reason. I mean, it's like they put in all this time, all this work. They feel good about things and they fall. They don't feel as good about things and they rise. I mean, is there anything like that going on? Have you heard about anybody doing a meteoric rise or a meteoric fall as the draft comes to a conclusion here?
I don't think it's ever as significant as maybe as it seems on the outside. Maybe there's some people just catching up, whether it's media, mock drafts, whatever it is, maybe catching up on later film or, later evaluations on players. There are guys that have outstanding performances, obviously, at the combine and the pro days, whether it's testing numbers or whether it's a skill player or any position player in their position workout, just do an absolutely phenomenal job. There's obviously a lot of factors. Guys could have been dinged up medically or not fully healthy during their season. And then, maybe teams are a little bit unclear on where to put them on their board. And then now that they're healthy and are moving around a lot better than what you saw on tape, then they can have that type of rise. On the negative part of it, usually it would be something off the field character wise that would come up, or maybe once our doctors do all the final grades on guys from the combine and other guys that we brought in that were non-combine guys, that could be a reason guys could fall, whether it was a character or medical concern, or if you thought you saw a guy that was really fast and really athletic on tape and their numbers don't match that up from his combine or his pro day, then that takes you back to the tape, and then maybe you can adjust his spot on the board accordingly, whether that's moving them up or moving them down. But maybe there's a handful of guys every year, but I don't think it's as drastic maybe as is portrayed publicly at times.
From a percentage standpoint, I'm only using that because I don't know how to measure otherwise. How much time percentage-wise is spent on other people's potential draft needs, and the way you guys have been together for a while, you know how a lot of other teams think. How much time is put into what they're doing affecting what you might do? I mean, is it more, obviously, a hell of a lot more is put into your draft and assimilating your board and everything else, but how much of a factor is what everybody else you think might be doing?
Yeah, you're right. We definitely, most of our time and effort is concerning where we have guys on our board, where we value guys, but we definitely put a good amount of time in studying other teams' needs, studying their trends in the draft, whether that's how aggressive they may be with a trade up scenario, or open they would be to a trade back, or accumulating future picks. There's a lot of different studies that we can do analytically that way, and just studying different style of players that teams may look at, whether that it's a scheme thing or some other reason in their character or their makeup, just certain types of body types that different teams look for. And then there's a lot of new staffs every year. There's a lot of turnover in NFL football on staffs, and you study the previous places that those coaches or those GMs have been, and maybe look at what type of players that they've targeted or been around in the past and had success or not had success with. So there is a good amount of studying that we do of other teams. And yeah, we want to know, like, if there's certain guys that we're targeting, we want to know who's in front of us that could be interested in that style of player, that position that player plays. So there's a lot that goes into it, and we kind of earmark those things on our draft board and in our system. And like I said, the more information we can gather in that way throughout the scouting process, the better. And it gives us a clearer picture on the best way to acquire certain players.
Another component to get ready for the draft and execute the draft is doing the job in veteran free agency and the signings that took place during veteran free agency, and filling some potential holes and alleviating some needs at position group. How important was the offseason and free agency that you had?
Oh, I think we had a really productive offseason. Steve Radicevic heading up the pro scouting side, he did a phenomenal job. Trey Brown did an excellent job as well. They kind of head up that process, and I help them out as needed, as well as the rest of our scouts, Andrew Johnson and Christian Sarkeesian, do an awesome job. Like you said, we're all on the same page that way, and I think it was a really productive offseason in terms of filling needs. And then now going into the draft, we don't necessarily feel like we need to be forced or overdraft a guy at a certain position necessarily. And we can, all things being equal, hopefully take the highest rated player. And that's due to the work that our staff has done over the off season and adding some really talented players through the free agency period.
I know. I feel like anyway that at number 18, you're going to get a good player. I mean, other drafts has been like, I'm not sure about this position, but the four position groups I'm thinking about: offensive tackle, wide receiver, interior defensive lineman, cornerback. And at 18, there's going to be good players at any and all of those positions. Just a matter of where'd the run happen, and how depleted is that position group. But it seems like not only the depth in the first round, but the depth in the entire draft. Is this as deep as a draft has been for quite a while in all rounds, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a really deep draft. You've got players, like you said, there's less players coming out early maybe than the past
Yeah.
handful of years because of the NIL stuff. But there's also guys that have stayed in college longer than they normally would have. So there is a lot of numbers throughout, like you said, throughout day 3, throughout every round. And I do think it's a really strong draft. And I think, like you said, we're going to get a really good player there at pick 18. It's just up to us to rank the guys in the order that we see them, across positions and value our grades and value our character and medical assessments and put it all together. But yeah, I feel really good about us getting a high quality player there at 18. Don't want to be picking up at 18. Would rather be picking down there low at the very bottom of the round, like we have the past couple of years. Hopefully one of these years we'll be picking there at 32 in the first round.
There you
that's
go.
the goal. But yeah, I think with this draft and the way everything aligns, sitting there at pick 18, we'll get a good player if we sit there, and then we'll continue to have the discussions if there's a guy that we really value above the rest of the group and we think it's worth a target to trade up, or we think a trade back is the right move. Those are the discussions that we'll have. But either way, I think we're going to end up with a good player there, and then throughout the rest of the draft as well, there's nice depth in every round.
History has shown, haven't traded up in the first round in the last 25 years, but have traded back 2 times since 2010. So I'm sure you get hammered with opportunities to trade up or trade back constantly. I mean, how many calls does it vary on a draft by draft basis, or do you expect because of the depth of this year's draft there'll be fewer calls about trading up or back because people, they're still a good player, I'm staying where I am? Do you think that'll affect the amount of movement, or it's, well, we got to move? There's only a few guys left here in the 4th round. We can't stay here.
Yeah, I think every year there's a ton of trade calls. I mean, our phones are constantly blowing up throughout the draft. It just depends. I mean, every team's different. Whether it's a quarterback somebody's going up to target, or it's the last corner that a team has a 4th round grade on, and then they think it's a really big drop off. On early day 3, they want to go get that guy. They really need a corner, and they don't want to drop down 1 or 2 levels of player if they sat there and waited. So. I think every year, I don't think it's there's a huge difference year to year in the amount of trade calls we get, and it'll definitely be active and on the trade lines, and there's a lot going on, and again, I think our staff, Duke manages it, does a great job of staying calm in his demeanor and evaluating all options and picking out, if there is a trade opportunity, picking out the one that makes the most sense for us, and just evaluating everything from every angle, and it's a very, very thorough process. Nothing's done by flying by the seat of your pants, so to speak, and everything's well thought out. So it'll be interesting to see, some of the discussions that we have, but that doesn't really heat up obviously until you're actually there at draft day. Everything else before that is just kind of exploratory, informal type of calls.
Boy, as a former offensive lineman, and we'll get you out of here on this, as a former offensive lineman, I like what you've done up front. If you're not between 6'6" and 6'8", and between 320 pounds and 350 pounds, you can't cut the mustard, man. I mean, it is the Great Wall of China up there. It is unbelievable. And not only do you have massive human beings, they're athletic, and 4 of them have won Super Bowls. You have 4 Super Bowl winners of the 5 guys projected guys up front. But with all that said, I love what you've done. But man, you can never have enough good ones. And I'd love to see a big boy. I'd love to see him. And these guys are behemoths. I mean, the size of these guys, 6'7", 330 pounds, 11 plus hands, 7'2" wingspan. It's like, what the heck? And to see how athletic some of these big bodies are, it is crazy.
It really is. It's we've acquired some of the bigger offensive linemen in the league. That's the bigger, the longer, the stronger, the more athletic, the better. So we're always looking for the top of the line in every area that we evaluate, and we just happen to end up with guys that are massive human beings, and they're outstanding offensive linemen. So I'm really happy with what we've done on the offensive line. Like you said, you can never have enough. You have to constantly evaluate and continue to add guys big bodies in the trenches on both sides of the line of scrimmage. So we'll certainly continue to look at those guys, whether it's during the draft or after the draft, or whenever it is during the season. We're going to constantly look to upgrade and add to your depth, because you never know how it could play out during the season. Whether it's injuries, performance, whatever the case may be. You can never have really enough good players at any position, but for sure the line of scrimmage, as you know, that's kind of where most games are won and lost, and that's something we're certainly going to put a premium on.
And I just want to mention what a great job, not only in free agency, the draft, but college free agency. Those are the three components for roster building. You guys have put the bat on the ball many times in college free agency. You have that down to a science as well. And you think there's always talent that, for whatever reason, doesn't get drafted, and I'm sure you guys are on top of all of that as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, like you said, there's only so many first, second, third round picks. A ton of the guys that we cover, we spend just as much time, covering those late round guys as we do some of the higher end guys. And we give everybody their just due, and it's a thorough process. We're not just skipping over guys once we get to that 5th, 6th, 7th round priority free agent type of grade. So it's a very thorough process with everybody. We evaluate, we watch extended amount of tape on every player, and yeah, we've got it ranked at every position, who we would like to attack, both in the late rounds and in college free agency. And we split it up amongst the scouts and coaches and ownership, and just kind of attack it position by position. And we'll try to get the most talented guys that we think can be competitive for us in camp and push for a roster spot, or potentially end up on the practice squad as a developmental guy to work with and give you something here in the future. So the college free agency is certainly a huge part of what we do. It's it's nowadays you see undrafted guys all the time making impacts on rosters, and with the flexibility we have with elevations from the practice squad, it's huge that way, in terms of a guy's, at a moment's notice could be up there on your 53-man roster if he's on the practice squad. So we'll keep working all those angles, and it'll even after the draft's over, after college free agency, the initial wave's over, we'll continue to evaluate who's out there on the street and maybe who gets waived by other clubs, and just constantly try to upgrade that 90-man roster and put the best 90 guys we can out there going into training camp.
Well, you and the people you work with are doing an outstanding job of building another great roster for the Cincinnati Bengals. It never stays the same. There's always some come, some go. But, boy, the process of putting it together, you guys do as good a job as anybody, and exciting to see what presents are going to be unwrapped in the NFL draft. Mike, appreciate your time. Thanks for spending a good bit of it with us, and good luck in this week's draft.
Appreciate it, Lat. Thank you as always for having me. We're looking forward to the draft. It's an exciting time around here, so looking forward to it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realized self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Opportunity knocking.